All right, welcome to Zim Ladies Roundtable podcast. I am Tino, and this is my co-host, Dr. Tafi. Join us as we dive into real conversations about empowerment, culture, and progress. Each episode, we share stories, explore important topics, and connect with our vibrant community. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Zim Ladies Roundtable, and tune in to BWTV and Cityscape Radio on brownstoneworldwide.com for all our latest content. And follow us on Instagram and Facebook at ZimLadiesRT to stay connected.
At just 16, she was one of the youngest students in her college class. And by 24, she had lived on 3 continents, working for some of the world's largest companies. But despite her professional success, she found herself searching for deeper meaning. Through introspection, setbacks, and coaching, Yewe discovered her true calling, helping others navigate their journeys with purpose. As a former internal auditor and now attorney, she has spent her career as a trusted advisor to executives. Today, she extends that expertise as a coach, empowering women lawyers to find fulfillment and success in their careers and lives. From storyteller to career strategist, Yewe calls herself a personal trainer for the heart, mind, and soul. Get ready for a conversation that will challenge you to embrace your journey and step fully into your purpose. Welcome, Yewe. We are so excited to have you today. You have had such an incredible journey, Yewe. Starting college at 16. Not many people do that. You've worked on different continents and now you're coaching women lawyers. Can you share what sparked your first major career shift?
First, thank you so much for having me. It's really awesome to be with you guys. Thank you. My first major career shift actually happened in college because I went to college knowing that I wanted to go to law school. But because I had started in part so young, and then two, I emigrated to this country, and like many people who immigrate, you know that you're there for a purpose, you got to work hard. And so
Right.
I was very focused in college, but I also was that person who was involved in everything. And I was on, this committee, this board, this, so involved in leadership, academics, et cetera. And by the time I got to like my junior year, I was really, I recognize now, burnt out. And so I was like, I don't want to go straight to law school. I have to figure out, there has to be a way that I can like take a gap year or something, And that's when one of my mentors said, hey, why don't you look into internal audit, take an internal audit class, because I was a business administration major. And she said, it's very similar to law. And I took the class, loved it. And then that put me on a different track to start with, which was banking. And so that's kind of when the first career shift happened. Even before I started my career, I had already, shifted a little bit, knowing that I wanted to just take a little bit of a break before going straight to law school again. Yeah, so I would identify that as the first one, actually.
Wow. Did you enjoy that more, or do you enjoy what you're doing now more?
Oh, internal audit was not for me. Um, I had intended to do it for a year, and I was like, after a year, then I'll go to law school. But you know what they say, when you make plans, God laughs or something, right?
Oh, yeah.
Within that year, I started working in North Carolina for, at the time, Wachovia, and then I wound up in London. on an assignment, which was supposed to be short term. I think it was like a couple months, like maybe 3 months. And I was there for 3 years. And so I did not go to law school after a year. I was in London, and during that time also, the financial crisis happened. And Wachovia was acquired and merged with Wells Fargo. And so, yeah, it was a great learning experience, but it was also just a great push for me to be like, this is not what I want to do. Um, and it's time for me to get back on the track that I said I wanted to do, which was pursue law school. And then in terms of whether I enjoy that, like which was better, I think they're so different. It's hard to compare. But now being a coach and working for myself and really having the self-awareness about what works for me in terms of how to work and what I need to do to feel fulfilled in my work, nothing beats that. Nothing beats that. And I didn't have that when I was, fresh out of college. I didn't have that. So this is a nice place to be.
Oh
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah. I just love that you had the shift and then you circled back right back to, what you set out to do at the beginning. And, going through college without knowing what you want to do is kind of crazy, but we also have that influence from, our parents and all of that. And, you're a Zimbabwean woman, and you've worked in these global corporate environments. So how has your identity and cultural background influenced your career journey?
Mm, it's influenced it massively, massively. I'm not someone who like shies away from or hides the fact that I am Zimbabwean, the fact that I am, African. I own that proudly. Um, and I think for me, I've always felt a great sense of pride to just have the opportunity to be in the spaces that I've been in, coming from where we come from. It's a small country on a large continent, and then to end up in rooms with people who are, so powerful, people who, are like at the top of their careers, and to be in those same rooms, it's very, very humbling, and, to do so at a young age, right? So that was never lost on me during my career. And I also felt like in addition to carrying the burden of, sometimes being the only Black person, I felt like I carried the burden of the only African person, and I was like representing my whole, clan and village and country, and and so that's a lot to bear.
Yeah.
And so I think that made me always work extremely hard, because the sacrifices that it took to get there. The sacrifices of generations before you just to get where you are. And so I think it meant that I worked very hard. I think it also meant that I didn't always take the time to stop and pause and check in with myself to be like, you know what, maybe it's time to get off of this track and do something else. And sometimes I wasn't able to do that, like practically speaking. Um, so it's interwoven in it's like multi-layered. It's such a hard question to answer. But I think one way that I am now unlearning that is part of my culture, our culture is very deferential to elders. It's a very kind of respectful, culture. And there's a beautiful element to that. What comes along with that is people pleasing. You
For
find
sure.
yourself always, right? Always thinking, what will people think?
Yeah.
How can I say this to such and such person? And when you take that into the workplace, it is a recipe for burnout. It is a recipe for having no boundaries. It is a recipe for resentment. All things that I experienced and felt. And now, especially in the work that I do as a coach, I have been on a journey to unlearn a lot of those things, right? And so culture played like it's such a huge role. I mean, there's even elements of the respectful culture of, you respect your elders and you kind of have to like show them that you're respectful. Sometimes you don't even look people, in the eye. You don't talk about yourself. It's a humility, based culture as well. You don't talk about your achievements and all of that. All things that like are so antithetical to Western culture. And so you show up in these spaces where you're at a table and people are talking about, oh yeah, I've done this and I did this, and you're there like, all meek and and it doesn't serve you well. So there's elements of the culture that I'm recognizing didn't quite fit when I was in those spaces. And that's why there was a lot of tension for me at some points, right?
Mhm.
However, because I want to also talk about the things that are beautiful about the culture and how those help me.
Right.
The Ubuntu, culture, Hunu, treating people with dignity, seeing
Right.
everyone as a human. And it doesn't matter whether this person is cleaning shoes or carrying trash. That person in our culture has a place of stature, right? That is
Right.
an uncle, an aunt, or whatever, right? And so just that, I think, allowed me to form really great relationships with people, even
Mhm.
people who other people didn't even pay attention to, right? But I did because I'm like, you're a human. It
Right.
doesn't matter what your role is, right? And so just I think operating with that kind of baseline has been really great for me. And now that I'm coaching, like I see the fruits of that. I see the relationships and the goodwill that I've built up over time just from having really great relationships with people. So I think it's a multifaceted, multi-layered, we could have a separate podcast conversation just on that. That's
Yeah.
like my short answer
Yeah.
for now.
So being a high achiever and then also working in spaces where there's a lot of other high achievers, did you ever feel like you weren't enough or you're not, or you're doing too much? And then now getting to a place where you're reinventing yourself. How did you manage those emotions? Like, how did you go through that?
Hmm. So it's interesting. Two things. I think for sure, yes, I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt like I wasn't doing enough, right? Because you are putting in all this effort and sometimes it's not yielding the results that you want, right?
Mhm.
And so you're like, well, am I doing something wrong? And then in my profession, both internal audit and law, even more so, are really difficult professions, really hard professions where you are scrutinized because what you're doing is high stakes.
Mhm.
And so, any mistake could be like, such a big deal, the fact that you miss
Detrimental.
XYZ.
Mhm.
And so, that emphasis on the things that are going wrong really makes you start to question and focus on the things that are going wrong as well. Naturally starts to be part of your personality and how you show up, right? You
Right.
only see and
Oh, yeah.
criticize the negative things, right? Because that's how you show up at work. So I think that for sure, I definitely felt less than.
Mhm.
Um, However, I did have people who reminded me that I was worthy because I had worked hard and I was
Right.
smart and I deserved to be there. And I think also, we talk a lot about imposter syndrome, but the kind of pushback or counter to imposter syndrome when you are literally navigating systems and in systems that were not built for you.
Right.
And certainly, in the industries that I've worked in, primarily banking industry, before law school was banking. And then when I was a lawyer, I was in financial services banking. None of those systems were built with a person like me in mind. And so if I'm
No.
in those spaces, I'm going to have trouble conforming and, I'm
Yeah.
not going to quite fit, right? And I experienced that. And then the second piece, I think where I'm at now, I'm not so much reinventing myself as I am becoming who I've always been
Ah,
and being
that's good.
able,
That's good.
yeah, being able to own that and really take up full space in that and say, listen,
Right.
yes, I am a lawyer and a
Uh-huh.
children's book author and
Right.
a
Mhm.
coach, you know, and, and,
Right.
and, you know,
Yeah.
and I don't fit neatly into any box that you can place me
Mhm.
in. And so
Right.
I'm I'm like emerging, and for some people, they're like, wow, this is a new thing. And it's like, no, I've always been this person. I've
Uh,
always been a creative. I've been a creative since I was 5, 4. Like, my family can attest to
mm,
that. I have a long kind of long history in like creative arts. When I actually went to college, I wanted to major in art. That was going to be my major.
Mm.
But I
wow.
I I was convinced that art would not be a good major because what if I graduated and I didn't want, to go to law school, which that's exactly what happened, right? I didn't want to go straight
Mm,
to law school. And then I was trying to find a job. Art was not going to get me there. And so
mhm.
why didn't I consider something more practical? And what was thrown up was like engineering, computer science. And I was like, absolutely not. I don't want to do computers. And so the middle ground was like business. That's how I ended up as a business major, but I was supposed to be an art major.
And
So
Mm,
I share
that's
that
a
to say,
problem.
like, I've always been a creative. The law, all of that stuff just is a path that I took. But it
mhm.
was never just who I am. It was never like, oh,
Ah,
you're going to be a lawyer and that's it. No, I was always going to be flexing, my talents and flexing other passions. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful to be able to do that now a little bit more freely.
and that's the problem. We have good and bad sides to our culture. And one
Mhm.
of those is forcing things on people that are not necessarily when it comes to school. My kid, you either have to be a doctor, a lawyer, sometimes maybe an engineer, but doctor, lawyer, those are like the top ones. And
Oh yeah.
sometimes people want to go to school and be an art teacher, and that's okay. People want to
Mhm.
go to school and be a professor, and that's okay. But
Mhm.
sometimes in our culture, we want to force certain academics on people, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. And sometimes for you, it does work out, you know?
Yeah, I empathize because I am a parent and I understand. I understand where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't even like my mom saying that. It was like other people who, were in the system, like educational system. But I think the it's coming from a good place, which is we want to do whatever you can to set you up for success.
Right.
We already know that in this world you're showing up as a Black woman,
Yeah.
African,
African.
right?
And
So
then,
we want
Mhm.
to set you up for success as much as we can. And success, traditional success, looks like traditional careers.
Yeah.
So it is really framed by what the older generation knew. Our generation knows, listen, you can be a content creator and make money. Okay. And
right.
so now we know because there's more avenues. And so I don't even think it's limited to our culture. I think I know I have Nigerian friends, I have Asian friends. I know so many people who have similar experiences of like, oh, these are the things you should do, whatever. And I think it's coming from a good place. It's kind of based in fear, right? Like the fear
Yeah.
of if you do anything that's outside of what we have seen to be successful, what is going to happen to you? And to be very clear, like for me, I did not have the experience of being told you need to be a lawyer. Like that's something I wanted to do. I
Mhm.
literally wanted to do that since I was a kid. And it was ill-informed because my two kind of things that I was weighing were to either be an actress
I
or a
love it.
lawyer.
Wait a minute. Actress?
Like
What was the other
actress or
one?
lawyer.
Oh,
It's like
So lawyer.
left,
those
left
didn't.
brain or right brain. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
love.
it's a whole story, but like left brain or right brain. I was literally making that like weighing that when I was really young, like I think like third grade, fourth grade. And yeah, so I think I get it. It's coming from a good place. However, you're right. It's like we've got to let people pursue the things that they're passionate about, honestly, in
Yeah.
terms of like what they want to learn. And it's up to us. Um, for me as a parent, my job and what I know is I need to pay attention to the things that my kids are interested in and,
Right.
pay attention now at a young age because what I counsel people now and guide people towards as I'm coaching is what are the things that you were interested in when you were younger,
Right.
you know?
Mm, mm. Yeah, and I absolutely understand that because what I wanted to do and what I ended up doing in college, two totally different things, and then what I'm doing now completely different. And I feel like after college, I pursued more of what jobs that fulfilled me, right? Instead of, oh yeah, let me go for money or whatever, because you can only chase the money, for so long. I feel like you need to find something that's fulfilling. And it seems like there's a lot of women, I'm sure men as well, lots of men, but a lot of women feel stuck in jobs that no longer fulfill them, because you're either chasing money or you're chasing, or somebody pushed you to go to school for something that you're not really interested in, and they're hesitant to take those risks. So, coming from somebody who did what they wanted to do, right?
Took the risk.
Despite what anybody else said to them, what are some steps that somebody can take to embrace that change without fear?
Ooh. That's a loaded question, my dear. Oh my gosh. First of all, I think we have to um understand that just because you feel nervous, fearful, anxious, that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, right? Because there's a natural kind of nervousness that arises when you are embarking on something important, big, etc. I think it's dwelling in that is the problem, right? So I'd say don't be afraid of feeling the feels.
Yes.
Also, I think too, another category of people, in the group that you mentioned, right, is people who maybe they're doing exactly what they set out to do, but still they're feeling stuck. Sometimes that is because it just doesn't fit anymore, right? It's like you might have this favorite pair of jeans, and then you wake up one day and you're like, what am I doing? This is just not my style anymore, right? And that's allowed too. And I think we often think that just because, you've always done it this way, whether that's your career or whatever, you've got to continue to do that. And so what I what I like to explore with people is what would happen if you took the limits off, right? What would happen if you just dreamed big?
Oh, yeah.
What would you be doing? And
Wow.
as we talk about that, people start thinking and they start exploring. And then, we go down that path and we start working towards, various things. But my role as coach is to like help you to dig deep and discover more of who you are, right? Go beyond the surface and go deep and help you once you've, gone through that process of self-discovery, help you move in the direction of your dreams, no matter how big those are. Let's move in that direction. Because if we keep moving forward, we're going to find momentum, right? We're going to find momentum if we keep moving forward. So I think it's really individualized to say, like, how should you operate? It depends. What are the things that you value? What are the things that ground you? I know for me, as I was going through that process, I would be lying if I told you I was doing it without fear. I would be
Mm.
lying. I have been in a transition for the last year. Really longer, but let's just say the last year definitively, right? Um, and fear has been, part of that journey. You know what else has been part of that journey? Faith.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and faith and fear, they cannot coexist. And so I've had to choose which
Mm.
one I'm going to allow to shape the way that I move, right? But for everybody, they have their own things. And so it's really, I think, identifying for yourself. What are you going to choose? Because we have
Wow.
a choice in every moment.
That's
That
true.
really resonates with me because what was it, October 2023, I went to work one morning and the things that were there were just not agreeing with me. And I know I'm not supposed to be in a space where I work for someone. I know I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. I know that's where I'm supposed to be. And I got
Yeah.
to work that morning and there are just too many shenanigans. And I'm in healthcare. I literally gathered my little things. This is October 2023, and I walked right out the door. They called me for 3 weeks trying to get me back to come to work, but I knew I'm not supposed to be there. And I had to get to a point where I couldn't live in fear anymore because I was only still there because I was fearful. And from that day onwards, I'm a single female. I live on my own. I provide for myself, and I just quit my job. And we're still in the 2023. We're just out of this COVID stuff. We're just, you should not be quitting your job because most of the pandemic, we really didn't work. So we were using our savings and everything. So we're rebuilding. So imagine I just quit my job. I just literally had to get to a point where I'm like, you want to be scared or do you want to do it? And now I'm at a point where I'm rebuilding. So that really resonates with my spirit because when fear grips you, oh my God, you're in it. You cannot see anything else besides your problems. And I had to tell myself, you're going to do it. And when I tell you God is faithful, every day I wake up, now I go to an office. I do my own thing. Yes, I pick up contracts here and there, but I'm working for myself. I'm doing things that I enjoy. And as you guys, I know you guys said you knew what you wanted to do as a child. I didn't know that, but I knew what I needed to do was because I'm a person of service. So I like to make sure I help people. And that's what I've always done. Every single job I've ever had was servicing other people. That sounds bad, but you know what I'm saying. So, but it really spoke to me when you were saying that because fear can be very gripping and can really hold you back. And that's honestly what's held me back because I should have been where I'm at today a few years back had I actually listened to myself and done what I was supposed to do. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was really, I was just sitting here and I could feel my spirit whirling up because I'm like, wow, that's how I felt. So that's definitely amazing.
Thank you for sharing your story. I love that. And you're talking my language, like God is faithful. I also go by like what my spirit is saying, very like in tune, so to hear you talk like that, I'm like, that's exactly how I talk. And, I just also want to say and encourage you to be like, we often should ourselves, we should ourselves a lot. I should have done this 2 years ago. I should have. Where you're at now is exactly where you're supposed to be because you had to learn and unlearn and go through that process.
Very true.
Right? And so give yourself so much grace. I think that's another thing that speaking of our culture, and even just beyond our culture, just as Black women, no matter where you are, we don't give ourselves enough grace. We are so hard on ourselves. We set these ridiculously high standards and other people set them for us. And then it's Black excellence and Black girl magic, which I firmly believe in. However, girl, give yourself grace. You're exactly where you need to be. Okay. You went through a pandemic. Of course you were scared, right? And so you made that leap now. And now exactly what you're doing now is what you're supposed to be doing, and so I just wanted to say that to you as you were sharing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you so much. Being a personal trainer for your heart, mind, and soul, how does this philosophy guide your work in coaching and leadership?
Similar to what you said about the common thread in all the jobs that you've had, for me, the common thread in how I've always shown up is I've always been an encourager. I've always been someone who pours into situations and people and speaks life, and so I came up with this phrase to describe how I coach, how I lead, and that is to be a personal trainer for the heart, mind, and soul. And so when I coach people, I am very much a person who says, bring it all to the table. We are here to talk about whatever's going on professionally, but I know that whatever is happening professionally impacts the personal, whatever is happening personal impacts the professional. And so bring it all. That's why, heart, mind, and soul, because those things impact how you're going to show up and how you're going to move. And it's welcome. It's welcome in my coaching space because I know firsthand that you really cannot separate those two things. Um, I also use that phrase to be very clear that I am not a teacher. I am not a mentor. I am not, when I'm coaching, I'm really a guide. We're working together and walking together, right? You are the person who's doing the reps. You are the person who's doing the work. I'm here saying, why don't you do one more? I think you can do one more. I've seen you just do 10. I think you could do one more. And so that's kind of the role that I play. I wanted to really paint that visual. And it's just how even if you follow how I post and show up on social media, right? Like my heart is in everything that I say and everything that I do. I'm not going to say something if I don't mean it. I'm not going to put something out there if I haven't put my heart into it. That's just who I am. And so that phrase is it captures how I want to practice as a coach. Yeah.
I I love that, Yewe, and I can completely see how you put your heart, mind, and soul into coaching, and it's sometimes difficult for people to, I guess, grow and be successful, right? And we all know that there's some habits or some mindsets that need to shift for somebody to be able to completely change, you know, to change their ways or become a leader or, start their own business. What's one habit or mindset shift that completely changed the game for you in terms of growth and success?
Wow.
Probably more than one,
I
right?
see what's happening here. You're with the loaded questions. I'm like, how do I choose just one? I love that question so much. I love it so much. Hmm. I'm gonna say because this permeates personal and professional. Realizing and recognizing that we get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
I think I just got chills. When I fully embrace that I get to choose, and in every instance, I'm making a decision. Things happen around us all the time, but we get to choose how we respond to that.
Right.
You could be in a toxic work environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are making a choice
To
also,
be there,
right?
right.
You're making a choice to be there. And we make excuses, oh, but I need to do this for my family or whatever. You are still making a
We
choice.
do. Yeah.
You're still making a choice to say, I'm going to continue and bear with this, right? And so I think when you come to that realization, it is it's a sobering one to be like, wow, wow, you know? And it allows you to be empowered, I think. It allowed me to be empowered to say, wait a minute, in what instances have I let other people choose for me?
Yes.
Right? In what ways have I given up my power?
Yeah.
And I think for me in the last year, navigating the gift of a layoff, right? Navigating starting my own business, navigating what will people think, right? And all of these things, the one of the most profound like mindset shifts I had to make was I'm gonna choose to say no to the fear. I'm gonna choose to say no to the fear, and I'm really leaning into that even more this year. And I sung the song that essentially says goodbye fear.
Mm.
Hello peace, joy, all the things that you you want to call in. And to be able to do that, you've got to let go of the things that are no longer serving you. And for me, fear was a huge one, right? But I was choosing to let the fear win and just be like, okay, fine, that makes sense, and rationalizing it in my head.
Yeah.
And you know what's happened when I have started to shed that fear? Things did not crumble and fall apart.
No, they never do. They don't.
In the
Yeah.
way that I was envisioning, I was like, wait a minute. Like I'm still reminding myself of that. I'm like, all these scenarios that I had conjured up in my head and that were literally the story that I was now, it was just like, it was almost fact, right? Because I'd run that scenario so much in
So
my
many
head.
times.
In your
It's like, oh,
head, right.
that's obviously what it is. And
That's
then
true.
you
Yeah.
let the fear go, and it's like that scenario is nowhere close. And also, what's happened is don't care. I don't care as
Mm.
much. I don't care as much because fear allows you to be so invested
Mm.
in all of these scenarios. Fear says, hold on to each of these scenarios
Yeah.
and pour your attention into them. You let go of the fear, these scenarios, you're like, I actually don't care. I
Mhm.
don't actually care,
And they're not
you know?
reality. Right.
And even if they become reality, it's like, wait a minute. These are other people's thoughts and actions. That has nothing to do with me. I
To do
cannot
with
control
you.
that.
Right.
I
Mhm.
cannot control that. So,
Mhm.
long way of saying, recognizing that I get to choose. That has
Yeah.
been a big one. Yeah.
And that's what we forget a lot of times when you're in that space of fear, that you have the power to choose.
Yeah.
That you within yourself are a powerful entity. You can do anything that you want to do. And I just, those are the things I have to keep telling myself every day. And the
Yeah.
not caring part, because I'm one of those people, I wasn't a people pleaser, but I did worry about what people thought.
Thought,
Now,
yeah.
oh my God, you can't, it's like someone might literally just drop right there. And I'll be like, oh, okay. Because I can't do anything about it. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can control except myself.
Mhm.
That's
Mm.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Power of choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of minding your own business, to be honest, really does help as well.
Child.
Oh, yeah. Mind your
As my
Mind,
business.
as my
drink
little
your
one
water,
says,
mind your business. That's it.
child. My little one's
That's
like,
it.
mind your beeswax. They're just learning that in school. Mind your
Love it.
beeswax. I'm like, yep. And I remind her too. I said, this doesn't concern you.
Mhm.
Right. It's
Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself.
Exactly.
I think, what you just said, is spot on. And I also think that I was like you in believing that I was not a people pleaser until I took some inventory. And I recognized that I think inherently, because of our upbringing, and I don't even need to know the details of how you were brought up to know that our upbringings are very similar because it's the culture is the same, right? And it permeates, it's African culture. And then I think other ethnic minorities have the same, but I'm just going to talk about like the Zim culture.
Mhm.
There is an inherent people pleasing in there. So the fact that you even said worrying about what people thought, there's because then that informs your actions. I was the same way. I was like, oh, I'm not a people pleaser. I would hear people say people pleasing people, and I'm like, oh, I feel sorry for
That's not
you.
me.
Wow. Who
Right.
wants to live like that? Oh, wow. And then I realized, wait a minute. And as I'm checking myself, I'm like, actually, yeah. Yeah. People pleasing is one of my saboteurs. It's not my top one,
Mhm.
but it is
One
one of
off.
the
Yeah.
self-sabotaging, things. And so I think it's okay to say, you know what I mean? To be like, you know what? There's a little bit of that. I'm just saying you're in good company, my sister. You're in good company, even if it's not one of your top ones,
Okay, it
you
wasn't
know?
my top one. It wasn't my
Yeah,
top.
yeah,
One off.
yeah,
One
Maybe
off.
top
yeah.
five.
Top five, exactly. Because I think we have to recognize it so that we can unlearn it. And
Right.
we grew
Mhm.
up a certain kind of way, you
Mhm.
know, you know, uncle is coming, Sekuru is coming, auntie's coming. You can't say that, you can't do that, you can't, you know what I mean? All of
Mhm.
these social contracts that were
Mhm.
communicated to us about, well, you
Yeah.
can't disrespect this person because they're older than you, they have a certain position in the family,
Mm,
all of that. And it's like, but they can disrespect you. They can say all these things. It's okay because they're
Mhm.
older and they're in a certain position. Like all of these things that are just like, what are we actually doing and what's
Right.
actually happening? I say that
wow.
just to say, we're all in the same, we're on the same boat. We're on the
We're
same
on the
boat.
same boat.
Um,
Ugh.
but I feel like you and I, it sounds like you and I have been on a similar journey, and I love that. And I thank you for sharing your story. It's like every time you're sharing, I'm just like, oh, I love it. It's very, very,
I
very
honestly
similar.
feel like at 36, I'm finding myself. I, it's never too late, but I always thought I knew
That's true.
myself, like the full strength
Yeah.
of who I am. But now, as I am developing and leaving, because, our parents, they never want us to leave home. They want us
Mm.
to stay there until we get married. But I got to a point, I talked to my mom, I was like, I'm ready to move. I can feel it in my spirit. And that was like at 32. And she's like, okay. And she could sense it herself. The last time I tried to move, she fought it. But this time she agreed. She said, okay. So living on my own, figuring out what I want out of life, how I'm going to do it, and even sometimes struggling through those hurdles has definitely built character. Because a lot of times when you're under an umbrella, you don't really learn a lot of things because you're
Don't.
sheltered.
Mhm.
But when you get out and you start, flapping your little wings and seeing, oh, okay. So if I do this, the sun does shine,
Mhm.
right? If I do this, oh, it might rain a little bit, but the sun will still shine, right? So it's
Mhm.
just, you really have to, I love this journey. And when you speak like all this stuff, it's really resonating with me because that's the journey I'm on. Every single day it's a new discovery. Every day it's something new. And just accepting ourselves is number one.
Mm,
Because a
that's
lot of
beautiful.
times we don't even begin. We get on this journey,
Yeah.
we say, we know ourselves. I know myself. I'm accepting myself. No, half the
But do
time,
you really? Hmm.
right, this person you're
Yes.
presenting, you're expecting other people to accept, but you don't accept yourself.
That that part, that part right there. It's a journey in self-discovery, self-acceptance, and
Mhm.
most importantly, self-love.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Self-love to just be like, listen, I am a flawed human.
Right.
So
Mhm.
flawed. I don't have my together.
Right.
Mhm.
I am figuring it out. And guess what? It's beautiful. And I love myself because I am worthy. I bring so much
Mhm.
value. And I think a lot of us, what I am discovering, whew, what I'm discovering is so many of us have internalized these messages we've received
Mhm.
from other
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
people.
Right.
Yeah.
And we are so broken.
Mm.
We are so broken that it is affecting how we work, how we
Right.
live, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that is part of the beauty of the power of coaching because then you have someone who, like me, right, is a personal trainer for the heart, mind, and soul. And I'm here to check you to be like, well, who told you that was true?
Right.
Mm.
Told you that you are all of these negative things because the
Mhm.
track record, what I know, what you've just shared, tells me
Mhm.
otherwise. So how do you
Yeah.
reconcile feeling like you're a failure and yet here you are, you've climbed the corporate ladder, you're a person who loves to help, you're a person, how do you reconcile that, right? And I think so
Mhm.
many of us are stuck in our heads. Remember those narratives we talked about? We're so stuck in our heads and we've played that tape so many times we've believed it now. And now we're broken and it permeates and shows up in everything we do. And then we
Mhm.
wonder why we're having issues, constant issues.
Mhm.
The same
Mhm.
issues are repeating in our personal and professional lives, the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
think one thing that really shows, Yahweh, is your, I don't know, your love of sisterhood and just how much you support, your people, right? We've known you for what, since 2020? And
Ah,
yeah, since 2020, and you have always, always supported us. And we love sisterhood. That's what Zim Ladies Roundtable is about.
mhm.
And I feel like when we look in the dictionary where it says sisterhood, I think your face is right there, right? I think your face is right there because it's been, it's what, 5 years, almost 5 years now that we've known you, and you have shown so much support
Mhm.
to Zim Ladies, to me personally, even, with my own ventures.
Mhm.
And I absolutely love working with you. And I feel like you're one of a kind hype woman, right? And I feel like a lot of women need that, and we
Mhm.
just don't know how to do that. We don't know how to hype each other up more, whether it's in business, in leadership, in life, or or any of that. And you seem to have been born to do that, and that's why
Mhm.
you're a coach, you're a mentor, that's why you're doing all these things that are so fulfilling to you. And I think you would be a great teacher on how, a coach on how can us as women hype each other up in all aspects of our lives, because you do that daily.
Mhm.
Absolutely, you do that daily. You don't even, can we find anyone who says, yeah, well, it has torn me down?
No, I've never heard it.
Probably,
If they
yeah,
say it, it's
I
a
don't
lie.
think so. Yeah, I don't think so because our interaction with you has always been positive. It's always been to learn something from you. So, teach us how we can continuously hype each other up. And, as Zim Ladies Roundtable, we want to continue doing that for other women, for women of color, for Zimbabwean women, American women, and all women, really. We want to hype each other up. And sometimes we just don't know how to do that. And you, as someone who does that daily, we would love to learn how can we do that more for each other.
First,
She always loads you up.
I know, I'm just like this. I'm ready. Oh my goodness. First, thank you so much for speaking life into me. Um, and just for your kind words. I receive them and they just mean so much to me. Um, and I'm gonna turn it around and say that's who you all are, you know? You have kept Zim Ladies Roundtable going for so long, and that's literally what you do is the space of sisterhood. And you're both busy women. This is not your only thing. And so I want to thank you for what you do and just encourage you to continue to do it because you're making such an impact. And I love working with you, and I will always sign up to support and do all the things, for and with you. And I think we should talk about a separate event to do like a hype session. I as you were talking, my wheels are turning. Um, because I don't think we can cover it fully just in right now. One thing I will share, and I recently started talking about this more. But I think when you operate from a place of abundance,
Mm.
you are able to give,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because you recognize that there is more than enough
Mhm.
for all of us.
Right.
And I think as women, we are often pitted against each other,
Hmm.
competing for all the things,
Right.
right? Whether that's men,
Mhm.
whether that's resources, job, whatever it is, right? Because we're always being judged, how we look, how we dress, how we, and so it's always this constant and it's exhausting.
It
But if
is.
we can just accept that, as we said before, like I bring my own value that is different from the value that you bring, Taffy, that is different from the value you bring, and together it's beautiful. We could do so much more if we accepted that about one another, right? And I think when you operate from this place of, I'm going to give because it doesn't take anything away from me
Doesn't
to
right.
give love, to give support, it doesn't take anything away because there's so much more. So I'm going to hype up another woman because that's my sister, right? Like, why not? I know how hard it is for us already. Why would I want to be an additional hurdle in that
Yeah.
process? And the energy it takes to do that is not worth it, you know? And
Mhm.
so for me, I love, love to support people who I am supposedly in competition with as coaches, there's so many women coaches out there. And I shared the story too about this woman who she is my competition, but she's a friend and we support each other and we hype each other up because you do things your way, I do things my way. Your
Right.
people will find you, my people
My
will
people
find
find
me.
me. Uh-huh.
Exactly.
That's just it. That's just
Yeah.
it.
I love
There
that.
are
Wow.
people who will gravitate to the things that you do, and that's okay. There are people who gravitate things I do, and that's okay. We're not competing. And actually, the more of us who are doing this work, the better, right? I felt that way even when I was writing the book, and people would be like, why are you promoting so and so who's also writing Zim books? We need more. If
Right.
I'm
Mm,
in a space and I'm the only one, what good does that do?
right.
Right. And I this concept of like wanting to be the only one or whatever, it sets us backward.
It really
It sets us
does.
back,
Hmm.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So there's more than enough. And for me, that comes from my faith. My God is faithful. I don't need to
That's
be worrying about, oh, but Taffy's got this going on. In fact, when I see that Taffy's got XYZ going on, that's encouragement for me because I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, didn't even know that was possible. But it's
mm,
happening for Taffy, it's happening for Tino, it can happen for me, as
Right.
opposed to, oh, it's happening for her, so then I can't, it can't happen for me. Absolutely not.
right.
So, um, yeah, I really appreciate what you said. And I hope to continue to be on this hype woman encouragement journey with you guys. I absolutely love the vision that you have, the love that you have for other women. It's palpable because you don't have to do this, right? It's not like you're doing this for the money. You know, you don't do it for that reason. Girl, I knew that would get a reaction. I knew that would get a reaction, you know? And so I pray that your efforts and everything, your energy, everything you put into this, um, yields really great and big results in the terms of the impact that you make. You know, may you continue to be inspirational. May you continue to be women who um, encourage and support other people, and may you also get that in return.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, so that's my
Thank
spiel. Thank you.
Wow.
you.
Thank you so much. This
Oh,
has
thank
honestly
you.
been my spirit is
Mhm.
smiling right now. It was good energy, good vibes.
Absolutely.
And we want our listeners to be able to connect with you. So, how can they share in all this abundance of wealth of information that you just gave us?
Oh, wow. I can be found on my website. Very easy. It's my name, www.yevedzo.com. On LinkedIn, Coach Yeve. You can find me that way. And subscribe to my newsletter, which hopefully I will revive very soon.
Well,
Do
let
you
us
know,
know when you do.
Tuffy, I don't know if you were paying attention when we had a live a couple weeks ago, and
Mm,
someone said to us, we need to have an in-person meeting.
yep.
And
Yep.
as I am talking right now, because obviously we'll need a panel, I'm like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
is
yeah.
it not perfect?
Absolutely.
I feel like, yeah, that would be one of our panelists. As
She
just
has to
here,
be. She's already said yes.
well,
Sign me up. Sign me up. I don't even know what you're talking about, but yeah, let's do it.
we don't know when we're gonna do it, how it's gonna happen, but I feel like we need to work on it because that's like the third person who said that to us.
Yes.
We definitely need some in-person type of stuff
Event,
now.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
thank you so
Connects.
much for joining us today, and sharing your time and your insights with us. We truly appreciate it. As always, you can follow us on our Instagram and Facebook at ZimLadiesRT. You can watch our episodes on YouTube as well as BWTV and Cityscape Radio every Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.